All right, I'm gonna get started a little early, a little earlier than scheduled. Let's push all the buttons. All right. Well, today I got a bit more time, than usual. So we'll see how that goes. If we do a longer stream today. Got a bunch of things I want to. Well, maybe a bunch of things might be a little strong. Several things that I need some fixing. They're all kind of related. I was pushing, checking some bits and pieces here, making sure all the buttons get pushed. But today, what I want to work on is, once again, looking at this, like the campaign map, so to speak. That's not working. All right, not gonna worry about that. Well, what I want to work on today is this campaign map, the ability for the player to have multiple colonies and move from one to the other. Where we're at right now, last week or two in my own time, got the saving more or less working, in the sense of we can now separate campaign data from colony data. It's in two separate files. We're able to handle that. But what I want to get done next is has to do with the campaign map itself. So when you start a single player game right now, or just when you open up a colony, it generates a world map, and you can click on one of the other icons, and it'll load the corresponding colony type, the type of world that's on that map, which is great. But when you load that next colony, the world map regenerates. It's not persistent from one colony to another, which is clearly a problem, especially if you want to return to a previous colony. So we need to be able to save that world data. And most importantly, I think that data is already being saved. What we need to do is then when we open up that new colony and we have a blank world map, we need to take that saved data and populate that world map. An alternative idea to that would be to take that world map and stick it on a do not destroy object so that it moves with us from scene to scene. I think that's okay. Maybe that works. That also has some downsides to it. And it doesn't solve the problem of when the player quits the game, comes back 2 days later, and wants to start over again. We still need to be able to load that. So even if we moved it to a do not destroy object, it doesn't really solve the problem that much. So let's take a look at where we are here. So here's our save data. I have to say, I want to make a video on this at some point because I'm really liking the simplicity of my save and load system. Here's the saving and loading right now for that world map. Right, here's our save function. Make things a little bit bigger. Save function, we got it in here. We're gonna save our seed, the random seed. Might need to work on that a little bit. Could be some problems with that. Right now I'm just saving the integer, the actual seed. I'm wondering if I can actually save the random so that we pick up where we left off instead of saving the seed. That might be a better way to do that. And then we grab all this level data. So level data is could probably be renamed here at some point. That is the data for each individual sector, so to speak. So whether there's a colony there or not, this is going to represent the location of it, some names, the world type, all that kind of good stuff. That's all in there. So this is the data, this list of level data. This is what we're trying to load. So we're saving it. I can see it in the save file. It's there. And then on load, we do the same kind of thing. Grab the world seed, we grab this data. And then if our save file has this level data content, we try to load it into the map data here. This is kind of where we're stuck. This is one of our sticking points right here. See if we can actually, we're going to be weird about breakpoints. That's fun. So what's happening right now is we are getting in here. We are loading the data. I can see that I've got this active tile count. This is just a fail safe. So mostly some of these fail safes are for testing purposes where I may or may not have this level data. So we go through, we load all this level data, and then we just increment this value here of active tiles. So active map tiles, the sectors, if you will. The naming is a little inconsistent at the moment. We definitely need to tidy that up a little bit. And then if for some reason we didn't activate any of them, if active tiles is 0, we're just going to generate a map as normal. Because we had no data, we didn't load anything, it didn't work. So we're just going to generate a brand new map, and then we're going to invoke map generated either way. So what's happening right now is, I believe what's happening, we're getting through here, we're loading our data, but then we're getting stuck. So what I want to look at is comparing here. So we're calling map generated. We also call that up here. So here's the normal workflow before we are trying to load the save data, right? We go to start, we call this delayed build. We do wait a frame. Wasn't entirely sure why, but some piece of the system needed to initialize, so this was an easy way to do that. A little lazy on my part, but I looked into it. I couldn't figure out what was going on. So anyways, we generate the grid. And so the grid, all that does is populate all the potential sectors with the game object representing that sector, but they're all turned off. This generates them, but they're all turned off. Not until generate map that's where we're actually choosing which ones get turned on, and we get kind of a random pattern getting built in there. And then we invoke map generated. So what I want to look at is, let's look at here, map generated. Let's see who's listening to this. Because it does seem to be part of the issue. I think what's happening is we're not... I'm not sure where we're getting stuck. So let's make this a reasonable size here. Try not to hide that behind a picture there. All right, start simulation pick. Oh, okay, this is where we were. Okay, now I remember a little bit more where we're. This is where I was getting stuck. So pick player start. All right, let's just run this and see if we can actually get to that breakpoint. I think we should be able to. I think hopefully Visual Studio is just being grumpy because, well, it gets grumpy sometimes. And let's put another, see if we can actually get, it's frustrating that the breakpoint's not gonna, let's also put one, oh, we've got one down here as well. So sometimes it just needs to, I'd love to know what this issue is. There we go. All right. It just has to load a little bit, I think. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're loading. This is slow. This is not this is going to need a little bit more refinement there. It's also, I was doing some testing in a build. The scene loading is much faster in a build. Okay, so we hit that. There's our breakpoint. Great. Okay, here's where I believe we were hitting an error. So this is not null. Okay, but the center tile is null. Okay, so let's go look at that. Okay, so okay. So that's a matter of save data. That's not too bad. So that's center tile. Again, naming's not great. I kind of, what is the words I'm trying to find in my brain? This got hacked together pretty quick, and for the result that I wanted, it needs to be refactored. But anyways, here's the generate map, and here we are getting the center tile. So what that is, the center tile is simply it's effectively the player starting position. Again, should be named differently. All right, let's bump out of here. We'll hit our breakpoint. Okay. So what we need to do there is we need to actually save that, because that's an issue. I mean, it's not really, because we actually don't want to. So we don't actually want to do this when we have loaded a map. That's actually the bigger issue. Okay, so let's come back over to world map generator, and we are going to map generated. So what we need to do instead, we're going to do map static event action map loaded. We're going to have a different we're going to have a different event evoked. So what we need to do here is then we're going to go through map generated and find where all these bits and pieces need to get updated. So let's try this. We're going to duplicate those. Map loaded. Map loaded. Oop. Okay. And these are just UI things. Updating these interactives, that just prevents us from clicking on stuff. Close window, it's pretty self-explanatory. All right. That's those ones. And then is it just, okay, it's just the start simulation. So go map loaded. I mean, I guess I could have, another way to do this is I could have put a parameter in the, added a parameter to map generated, have like a bool that would be like map loaded true or false. I don't love that. Okay, so actually, I'm going to, for now, this is part that hasn't been created. So there's a simulation here where we're kind of simulating enemy attacks on colonies and sectors and what have you. That hasn't really, that is really not developed. It needs a lot of work. So we're just gonna kind of pass the buck for now. We're gonna have a continuous simulation function. We'll call that. Oop. I don't know about you guys, but I would often, when I'm hitting Control S to save, I hit Control A instead. Clumsy fingers. Okay, so that opens the door to continue the simulation. Let's see if that works. Let's see if this works. Can't remember if I left those breakpoints in there. Nope, we still... Did I not save something? Yep, I didn't save. Okay. I'm surprised it did let me run without having saved that. Yeah, these classes really need a refactor and reorganization pretty badly. I've been spending a lot of time, I haven't come to any conclusions, but I've been spending a lot of time recently thinking about refactoring code because I've been doing a fair amount of that at work and dealing with legacy code and organization. And I don't really have a lot of concrete thoughts, but the importance of readable code, legible code. And even I was thinking about this the other day, and maybe this is just purely an arrogant, cocky thought, but the importance of easy to look at code. There we go. You know, this easy to look at code that when you look at a function that things are lined up and grouped in a way, right? It's the equivalent of you know, spaces between paragraphs and you know, other formatting issues that allow something to be read easily. I don't know. I know it's not a unique thought, but it's just something that I've been staring at a lot lately and thinking about. Okay, super cool. We made it through, and there's our world. Great. I think I may have reset my computer, but I actually took a snapshot of it the other day. Awesome. Okay, so I took a snapshot of it just to make sure that we were saving the correct data, which looks really good. Okay. I wanted just to make sure that we were saving the correct shape of the map. We were generating the right map, that the tiles were getting turned on again. Very cool. And I think, okay, so none of this. Okay. I gotta fix this. The close button on this doesn't do anything. Thankfully, escape still does. Okay, cool. Let's go look at the data. Let's look at the data here and see if we can. So this is the actual data that's getting saved. This is the location that's in there, and then the various bits and pieces that we're saving. So we're saving is active. That's how we decide whether the sector gets turned on or not in the map. And then we have who's controlling it, enemy forces, player forces, and then world type. And we'll probably end up adding to that. But I wanted to see. This is probably a horrible way to do it. This is the dumbest way to do it. Okay, so here's another error that was hitting. This landmass data is null. So this is something else that's just not getting loaded right now. This is another issue. So my enemy spawn points are hitting an error. All right. What I'm noticing, okay, so, well, we'll back out of here. We'll quit. So a couple other things we need to do here. I'm not going to worry about that landmass generation data being missing because we need to we'll fix that. And these other things we'll do. All right. what we need to do is we need to get some highlighting going on. So I guess maybe that's actually over here. The other thing I have going on is I have too many. I don't know if I have too many, and I don't love some of the way I've separated some of the logic here. So I have this world map generator, which does what it says. It's responsible for generating the map. Done. Then I have the actual window. This is the code for the UI. And then I have the code over here that does the actual simulation of the enemies and the player forces and what have you. So let's actually go back and look here where we... Okay, so set. Okay, so this is one of the things we need to do is we need to set the tile color. Oh, I actually have a set active. Okay, cool. Oh, that doesn't really do that much. Okay. That's useful here, but it's not necessarily useful in loading. So set color. Let's see where else we are calling that. In the world am I? Okay, so maybe I can just call set tiles. This has all the logic for setting players. Okay. But that's over here in world. Okay, so so that's going to be up here in... Oh, I'm bouncing around too much. Let me put this. I'm going to put this on a page over here so we can see two things at once. All right, let's shrink down a bunch of the stuff that we don't need to look at right now. Continue simulation we do need to look at. We are going to come back to that. Let's just shrink everything. Okay. Okay, here's what I'm looking at. Okay, update tile colors. Let's look at where this gets called. Update map tiles. Okay, so that's one of the things that we need to do. So we're going to grab these two functions and we're going to stick those in continued simulation. Okay, update visuals on map load. Okay, cool. Okay, so that should work. That'll do that. Okay, that'll get that. So that'll get triggered when we invoke this over here. All right, well, let's see if that works. So I guess the thing that I was looking for there was to make sure that are we saving the player forces, enemy forces numbers? Are we doing that? And if we're doing that, if we're able to load this back together, then the next step is going to be saving the associated colony data with each of the map tiles, the sectors, if you will. All right, cool. Do we get colors? Did we get colors? We did not. Okay. So we didn't get any colors, which is a bummer. And I guess that's what when looking through that text file, it didn't look like we'd saved um, any any numbers. And I can click around here, so I can make this a little bit bigger. So what I'm looking for here is enemy forces up here. Like I'm clicking on all that, and we're not getting any of that. My close button. That's hilarious. All right. All right. Okay. So this brings me to the next problem, the next thing that has been broken in this workflow. And that is when we currently right now, I mean, I guess I could be wrong, but when I was testing this last night, the new game is currently broken. It hangs. The map generation just never starts. Let's just do. Nope. Let's fix this. I think what I'm looking at here is I'm pretty sure I just turned off this auto generate because I didn't want to generate. So what I want to look at here, and I think this is what's blocking the new game is again part of what I've done. So what does work right now, or did work, right? We're doing lots of different things, so it's a little bit of like a whack-a-mole, right? You work over here, you break something over here, and you just keep iterating until it works. When the world map is fully populated with data, you can click on another tile and create a new colony. And when we do that, we load this generation data, which is what that enemy spawn point was also complaining about. And okay, so here we go. So here is the set generation data. Okay, I'm just refreshing my own memory on what I've done here. So on start, right, we on generation data set, we just take whatever generation data we have, we broadcast that because there's a surprisingly large number of systems that need to be aware of the generation data. And then if we're set to auto generate, we're not loading and we're not loading a new colony, then we go ahead and generate. So I'm going to try this real simple. I'm just going to put a breakpoint here. Okay, Visual Studio, sure. We're just going to put a breakpoint there. I'm willing to bet that. Let's put one here too. I don't think this will get called. Well, let's actually see where this gets called. Yeah, this is over here in the load and save manager. Oh, interesting. I'm just going to put those breakpoints in there and let's see where we're failing. Why are we not getting to generate the map? You could see the debris from testing. I have a button attribute in here, and we just prevented it from happening while we were playing. Like most of that is just not necessary. Maybe we'll clean that up as we figure out what's going on here. I really feel like there we go. Visual Studio and Unity have been playing together worse and worse recently. All right, new game. Maybe that's it. Maybe we're not even getting there. Oh, no, okay, we're playing that. Okay, yeah, so we're not even... Oh, okay, that's just like really broken. Cool. Love that. So on this branch, so I'm on a branch. This is not the production branch. This is a branch just for working on this map functionality. And I've changed a bunch of the loading mechanics. So apparently we've just flat out broken that, which is cool. I mean, I don't think it's that. So maybe it's more broken than I think. Maybe it's less broken than I think. I don't know. Let's go find out. Let's just trace it from the button here. All right. New game button. We're going to load new game. Start loading screen. Let's follow this through. Okay, we brought up the loading screen. We did that. We loaded start. All right. We added a loading screen. We play intro. This is a bit of a mess because we are playing all these bits and pieces. These are just plain messages to the player. So we get in here to do new game intro. Okay, we invoke this, which I think that's where we start our loading. Maybe we're not listening to that. Let's see who's listening to this. Okay. We'll put a breakpoint in here just to make sure we're getting there. And then we do load game scene. Okay, so we unsubscribe from that just for safety. We load the game scene. We load it additively. We set that scene active. And here's where we're setting the generation data. Let's break that out like that. We fade to transparent and then we unload the loading scene. So it feels like we're not getting here. Okay, I'm pretty positive we're getting here. We're pretty positive we're getting to the play intro. So let's go to play intro. Let's see what's going here. I'm wondering if we are playing the new game intro. We are definitely doing that. I'm just gonna put breakpoints freaking everywhere. Let's see what's going. We're not throwing an error, which is interesting. So we're just hanging somewhere. So I also think that's kind of an interesting discussion. Like I think a lot of, how you handle errors, I think is sometimes interesting. I was talking to somebody about this earlier, and the temptation, right, is to put in like all these like null checks and all these things so you don't throw errors. But if you do that, if you smooth everything out, okay, so false, do new game intro. If you smooth everything out so that there's no errors getting thrown, then you can also just like not find your errors. I don't know. I think it's an interesting. Never really come up with a good rule of thumb of when to do that versus just like throw the error and like stop the like just break everything so that you know something's horribly wrong. Oops. Okay, so we're hitting that. But we never got here. Why did we not get? Oh, because we didn't actually. Oh, funny. That's funny. Okay. Pull that up above my so folks can, if anybody wants to see this. So we're invoking this in two different places from the loading screen, but we only subscribe to it once, and that never gets hit. Okay, so oh, geez, wrong button. Okay, so again, this is one of those places where like naming bites me in the ass a little bit. Okay, because we got so many things that are like in dealing with saving and loading. We've got the I got the save and load menu. We've got the loading screen. We've got the save and load manager. Okay, so here is the issue. We over here at the loading screen, we call intro started. We invoke that, and then the load save manager needs to be listening to it and call this thing over here. But that's not happening. And I have that event in there to try to decouple these two systems a little bit. Problem is I have to couple them up enough so that they're aware of this. So So here's where we're doing the subscribing. So maybe this is what needs to be getting. Huh. Okay, so this is coming from load colony. I really just need to load gamesing. This is really all that needs to happen. Interesting little issue here. And the great part is like I want to load a brand new game so that I can save the data so that I can reload it and test the thing we were just working on. Okay, so back from the loading screen. All right, let's look at where else we are invoking this. So maybe that'll help us understand how to unravel this. So doing loading game intro. Okay, so we have that as well. So maybe what we need to do is let's see if this logic holds up. New game intro started. We're gonna duplicate that and we're gonna say load game intro started. That way we don't end up having this. Wait. Did I just delete it? Okay. Let's just double check. Oh, I'm just blind. And that goes to my earlier complaint of easy to look at code. So let's get rid of that. I'll have some spaces in there. Okay. So, all right, let's see if this wildly breaks things. What we're going to do is we're going to take that out of there. And we're going to bring that up here into an on enable. Okay. I think we can safely get rid of that. I think we can just, we'll duplicate both of these. Load game intro started. I feel like I over-engineered that one a little bit. Let's see. Because I was yeah, I think I over-engineered that one. Okay. Let's try the old thing. Let's see if the campaign, if we can still load a file. Looks like it's working. I'm gonna hit every breakpoint. Yeah, no, okay, we double loaded there. Oh, mother. thought I had this all fixed and I didn't. Okay, let's try something weird here. Let's try. And then clearly this system could use some more revision. I think it was 2 streams ago I was struggling with the system. Trying to get the save and load workflows to actually work correctly. Okay, we're gonna hit a bunch of breakpoints. I'm a little definitely that definitely has got some that's definitely got some smell to it that we need to unsubscribe like that. But because I think what will happen now if I go back to the start menu and if I go to load game, my guess or new game, my guess is I hit the same issue that I just had. Is that we free? Oh no. Okay. Miracles and miracles. So we're working on a new game. We're auto generating. That is true. We are not saving, and we are not loading a new colony. So we should generate. And we have normal world generation data. That's great. So that's going to get invoked. Great. I don't care. Oops, put in an extra breakpoint. This is what I wanted to see. Okay. I'm not happy with that other code, how fragile that appears to be and how convoluted that logic is. Why are we so slow? I've noticed this in the editor here. I don't know what's going on here. That. Oh, nice. Oh, we didn't unload the start scene. That's clever. All right. So clearly we have some work to do. All right. What I want to see though is if I come in here to the world map, it's populated. We've got some colors. That's good. Close button still doesn't work. So what we're going to do is save that. Oh crap. Huh. All right. We definitely have some things that are broken. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining again. Appreciate it. It's been a quiet one here in this stream. I do remember you. Yeah. How's your project coming along? let's just get rid of all of our breakpoints right now. Yeah, broken. Yeah, that's kind of the way it is. Oh, interesting. Scene to unload is invalid. That's why our start scene's not unloading. Okay. Yeah, broken projects. I mean, if you can't tell from... Oh, that's just so weird. Oh, okay. I mean, talk about knock-on effects. So what's happening right now is I can't save the game because the game doesn't save at night. That was me just trying to be remotely realistic about how complicated of a game I could save. Um, but because that start scene's not unloading, I'm almost positive it has a day-night manager on it. Maybe it. Yeah, it's got a day-night manager on it. And I'm sure that's the one we're finding. So because that scene's not unloading, we get to this scene. The day-night manager is not getting found correct. We're not finding the correct one. And then so the day never starts, so I can't save my game, so I can't test the other thing. All right. Let's go take a look at why this scene is not, why we have an invalid scene to unload. Let's see. We say the crystal I gave a health bar in world space. Then I tried making minions to help out the enemies, but my UI looks awful because I gave it abilities and I couldn't find great icons for it. Yeah, yeah. There's depends on the your style that you're looking for. Let's see if I can find it. I know you'd commented on my UI, which is fairly simple, but there is a. These are kind of flat and basic icons. I'll put it here in chat. It's a site that I've gone to fairly often. I don't personally. I haven't made a video on UI really. I mean, it's just a huge thing. You can check out that link there. That's got a bunch of good icons in terms of like they look reasonable. You can get them in different colors. You can get them black or white. You have a lot of good controls, and I think for a lot of simple projects, they're good enough. I think it's a pretty useful site if you're looking for basic but good icons. All right, so what we need to do here is all right, I felt like I had a Yeah. I mean, if you check on the Unity Asset Store, there's a fair amount of stuff that's out there for free. Not sure what your limitations are for. Um, and I'm not sure what your limitations are if you on what you can use. Come on, what are we doing here? Low, okay. I don't love that. I don't love putting if statements in there. It'd probably be cleaner to just what I was doing originally to cache or to grab the current um, scene and then just unload it. Yeah, you're having trouble with minions spawning seamlessly from the VX portal, but it's not working. Yeah, sometimes that stuff can be pretty complicated. You know, things that you think would be pretty simple end up being, you know, like loading scenes. It shouldn't be that hard. And usually it's not, right? Like, uh, usually it's not. Like I was definitely experiencing. I'm gonna experience this all the time, right? When you're working on stuff, you're creating new features. But it definitely was reminded of this yet again today at work. The last yesterday and today, I was working on this new feature that I'd worked on before and done a lot of the work earlier. But I was taking this system and modifying it, and I was blown away by how quickly I was able to modify the system. It just happened very quickly. And it was really impressive. I was able to show my supervisor, hey, look, this is working really great. Really promising, loving what's going. But then all the little details that come out of it take forever, right? It's that idea, like the last 20% just takes a huge amount of time. So, you know, it's the same thing with like spawning, right? Instantiating an object in the right position, the right rotation, whatever. That's not that hard. But when you get down to when then you like start adding like special effects, so it actually looks good, and you get sound effects and you have various animations and what have you, then it gets a lot trickier. I don't know what is going on with my clouds. My clouds are way thicker than they should be. We've loaded the wrong fog, is what's happening. Okay, all right. I know you love my UI. But again, if you look at my UI and you look at that site that I linked, you'll see a similarity in style. It's just simple icons, right? We're not doing World of Warcraft where you style like where we have professional artists drawing icons for everything. It's just simple. Simple is good. Okay, let's save this guy since we can now. We're gonna just save this over the top of our last save. Save complete. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a snapshot of the map here, because this is what we're trying, and all this fumbling, this is what we're really trying to reproduce. Let's get rid of the old one. The loading and saving of scene loading is going to have to get another pass. I don't like this too. So the colonies now get saved with these GUID. And they're going to have to hide those from this load save menu. But let's load this campaign. Let's see if this works. We're attempting fate a little bit by not restarting Unity. But that we want that to work too, so. Our loading colony didn't get unloaded. Interesting. Okay, there we go. Same world, same time. We didn't come in with a bunch of funky clouds, so that's interesting. So that's definitely a bug. And how'd we do on our map? That's pretty good. Okay. I mean, it's not like you'd get 90% of it and you get 10% it wrong. It's just good that it's actually working. And let's see here. Speaking of UI, this is also something like right now, this is like super prototypes. This thing here needs to get about 10 more rounds of iteration and polish before I'm going to be remotely excited about it. All right. But we've got our data loaded. That's awesome. That is now working. Okay, so now we have a place. Now I can start actually testing what we're doing here. Freaking fantastic. I think I pointed this out. Oop. We should get that close button to work too. I think I pointed this out last time we were talking about UI. Like this is my tech tree. And this, like, I'm kind of proud of it in the fact that I like how it looks. It's not amazing, like, right? I'm not winning any UI awards, but this took so many rounds of polish to get going. Even things like it's I don't know how well it comes across on stream, but like when you hover over different colors, there's a slightly different tint to the background, and it just kind of makes it feel so much more alive. And that world map needs to have at least this, it needs to have this level of detail. Again, a real UI artist could go a whole lot farther than where I've gone here, but I want to get the world map on par with this. It needs to be bigger. I might make it full screen. I might do the same kind of thing just to kind of make it a little bit more impressive. Make it feel a little bit more immersive. Like, okay, I'm really in something, not just like, I don't know. I want to make it so that maybe I do something very similar to what I've done with the tech tree, and so that it's scrollable, you can move around in it. That would allow a lot more information to be displayed in each hexagon, so you don't have to have necessarily the side thing over here. The more I say that, I like that more and more. I wonder if that close button's just not working because the game is paused. That's entirely possible. Let's see. You need more ideas for post-processing. Yeah, I think my take on post-processing is don't put it in too early. Don't put it in too early. It's because it's when you put in post-processing, it has all these like knock-on effects of like you start putting in fog, and that affects your lighting, and that affects your textures and your materials. And I think if you really, really know what you're doing, which I don't, that maybe it's different. But yeah, I would say don't put it in too early, but also go easy on it. Get your game in there, get it looking as good as you can with your materials, your colors, your ambient lighting, all that kind of stuff. And then go in with a fairly light hand on the post processing. I think a lot of players complain about overuse of post processing, right? And it's yeah. Developers sometimes go crazy with the effects of bloom and blur and chromic aberration. That's what I was thinking of. And here on this, like I like the way, again, it's not brilliant. I'm using a fair amount of those post-processing approaches here, but I'm using them fairly minorly. There is some chromic aberration in the screen. If you look up in the corners, you can see that there's just something a little funky going on with the colors, but it's way over there, right? It's not in your line of focus. Also, I'm using vignette, which I think helps kind of focus and pull your eyes in. But again, if I say it out loud, people can probably see it, but it's not super, super obvious. Okay, so what I need to look at next is what other data are we not bringing in here? And I need to think about we need to I guess the next step is I need to be able to associate a save file with each of these sectors. Yeah, you don't need a background image for your UI. You really, I mean, I've seen some, right? There's people who have some really nice stuff, but again, as I've said over and over, I chose simple. I went with semi-transparent black, and I went for the, again, I said this before, but I went for the non-offensive UI, right? I'd love to have some beautiful sci-fi UI, and I'm sure I would be able to sell a few more copies, and people would be a little bit more interested in the Steam store page. But I think really as a right, if you're working on your own project, I'm working on my solo project here. The UI just needs to not get in the way. I think it's as simple as that. There are plenty of games out there that have been very successful that have some pretty middle of the road UI. Okay, so how do we, this is what we need to do. We need to, am I the only one that's developed this game? Effectively, yeah. Nobody else has written nobody else is actively working on the project. I had a acquaintance who made the music for me. I paid them a little bit. I'm hoping we'll sell a few more copies and I can give them a little bit more money because I think they did a really nice job on the music. But yeah, nobody else is working on this game. All right, there's some assets here. There's work from other people. Clearly, I'm using somebody else's engine, but yeah, I'm the only developer on the game. Which is why I'm now closing in on 4 years worth of work. Okay. So yeah, the next stage here is we need to, let's close this save and load stuff. It's a mess, but it's working, so we're going to leave it for now. All right. So we need to get in here and save some extra data. I keep saying this over and over again. I keep saying it over and over again, partially because I'm hoping that if I keep saying it over and over again, a solution will pop into my head. It took 4 years. Yeah, almost. Let's see. I probably started the game in. I mean, it depends again, like what you mean by 4 years, right? I'm not working on this full time. I'm getting maybe 10 hours a week in on this. So you're looking at somewhere around like a year of full-time work worth of game. Which is why the game looks like it does, right? Like it's we're beyond proof of concept, but it still needs lots of polish and content in here. This is my third published game. I've got 2 other games on Steam. I've done a few game jams here and there as well. But yeah, so in that 4 or yeah, let's call it 3.5 years to be a little more fair. I changed jobs, I moved, like I changed careers, I moved. So there was a good 4 to 6 months in there where I did almost nothing. Uh, but yeah, I don't actually have I don't have any real regrets. Like I'd love it if the game was done and shipped and I felt really good about it, but I don't really have any regrets about taking so long because I'm learning a lot. There's a lot that I'm learning in while doing this project that I'm actually taking to my day job and is making me an overall better developer. Um, could I be doing that faster if this had been a 12 to 18 month project and I was, a couple more games down the road? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. All right, so we're going to put in here a string, and this is going to be the string. This is the file name. Colony file. And we're going to put in a bool has colony. All right, so if that is, we're just going to put it in there, has colony. That's nice and easy. And actually, I'm going to make this private. That probably has to be public in order to. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I was saying the other day, right? Like if you're just getting started, again, while I don't think my project is this thing of beauty and this amazing thing, like if you've been working making games for 2 years, comparing that to a game that I've been working on for almost 4, and I mean, I'm trying to think here where I think I've been working in Unity for 13 years. Like, yeah, it's not fair um, to compare. All right, we're just gonna put a public getter on there. That way we can actually get it in, but we can't edit it because I want to be careful that this value doesn't get edited. And this is a bloated class. I'm going to put a debug in here. Debug log. Adding file name. Because that's just going to be, might just be a little bit easier way to make sure this is actually working. And then we do this colony file name equals file name. Okay. Yeah, no, there's very little employment. Absolutely. I mean, I picked it up 13 years ago as a hobby. I picked it up as a hobby, as a way to learn to program, with the hope that I could eventually turn it into a career, which I did. So, and while there are certainly jobs that pay more than mine, and there are jobs that are more exciting than mine, I have landed a job that pays far better than teaching. No big surprise there, and it's really stable and it's low pressure. So, and in all honesty, so if you've been working in game development for 2 years, that's about where I was when I started working on my first game on Steam. And it's this beauty. Look at this piece of shit. It sold like 4,000 copies, but man, is it a piece of shit. All right. Okay, so we can add this colony name. That's the easy part. Well, and what I need to do next is, how do I actually get that colony name there? I need to get that colony name into this level data. I want to change this name here. We're going to call it, because it doesn't, level data isn't, that's not great. We're going to call it sector data because we're calling these things sectors in the game. That will make more sense. Okay. Yeah, and if you want to see bad UI, go look at that game. That game's pretty bad. That game's pretty bad. But as a right, I mean, I'm proud of that game because I got that game done and shipped, and I fixed every bug that was reported. I think some people came along, 2 years later and reported another bug, complained the game was dead and whatever. But there's a post on there like, game is fixed, it's done, like we're moving on. But I do think I am proud to have actually shipped a game. Most people haven't done that, so I do think that's a big hurdle in my mind to get over. Like, truly take an idea, polish it the best you can, even if the result is that game I just showed, and get it out there. Like, that's huge. Yeah, 4,000 copies. Like, you just don't do that anymore. That was before Steam. That was when Steam was really blowing up, in terms of independent people putting their games on there. So that game was actually greenlit. So the community voted. I got enough votes to actually get it onto Steam. I didn't pay the $100 fee to get it onto Steam, but somewhere in that process, when I got greenlit, somewhere between getting greenlit, so I knew I could put the game on there, and when I actually opened the store page is when they added, or somewhere in that timing was when they added the fee to put your game on Steam. still feel like $100 is too low. I said it back then that it should have been like $500. And so when that was happening, when they made that transition from green light to just paying a fee, they also changed the algorithm um, in terms of discoverability. And so there were a whole lot fewer games out there, which is a big piece of it. But I think also, well, also the thing is with Greenlight is because you had all these people that voted for it, you had community involvement in your game before it got started, which I still think it was a good way to do it. You had this built-in community before you could publish your game. Now you can publish your game, and if you bring a community with you, then it may or may not do well. But if you don't bring a community, it probably won't do well. I don't know. It may have had it. It probably Greenlight probably had fatal flaws, but it sure seemed like it was a good way to do it. But yeah, now I mean, selling 4,000 copies, it's I mean, it is both hard and not hard, right? You have to have a good game that looks good, and those are difficult things to do. If I could sell 4,000 copies of this current project, I'd be pretty stoked. I think I'm probably closing in after refunds. I think I'm probably closing in on like 300 copies of this game. Okay, so how do I... All right, so the next step is we've got to figure out how we store that data. Okay, so this is the window. That's not really what I want. Here's a conflict manager. So what I'm looking for, what I'm thinking about here is we need somewhere to store which of the sectors that we are currently playing, which colony is currently on the screen. We need to store that somewhere. So I've got a campaign manager here as well, which I'm not sure that's the right way to do that. Okay, so there is my current colony. So I have that there. So it's like I have like all the pieces set up, but I haven't quite figured out how they should connect and do it in a reliable way. Let's see what you're saying. Lastly, I need advice. I can't code for this long without involving an AI. I don't know if that's what you mean. I mean, I can manipulate the code and spot bugs and errors and ambiguity, and edit stuff here and there. Also understand it fully, but I can't code off the top of your head. How will I build a community around? I'm not exactly sure what your first statement there. I can't code for this long without involving an ... I'm not sure if you mean an AI. Not sure quite what you mean there. I mean, I think in terms of if you're talking about just like coding and stamina and being able to do it, I think that takes practice. 100% that takes practice, right? Like when I was getting started and when I was working with high school students, right, it could take a long time to write 10 or 20 lines of code, and you've got to test that 10 or 20 lines of code over and over and over again to get it to work. And that just, it takes a lot of effort. And as you get better and better, you can start writing longer sections of code with fewer errors, usually. Yeah, you gotta be patient. I also think there's a misconception, and this is where I'm really grateful for my current employer. Um, I work remotely, and so there's nobody like looking over my shoulder, making sure that I'm at my keyboard. But they don't. There's no enforcement of me being at a keyboard for 8 hours a day. A lot of the code, a lot of the programming work that I do, I'm doing while I'm watching a show, eating my lunch, or, you know, walking to go get the mail, or taking a shower, doing something, right? My head is going during all that time too. So I don't know. I mean, maybe you already do, but I would encourage you to think of writing to programming and creating games is not necessarily just being in front of your computer. Take a break. Uh, I also find that I have a sit stand desk, that's really helpful to break things up. Like I'm about ready to stand up right now. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, uh, my current take as a former teacher, and current programmer, I think AI could be really I think AI could be really fatally toxic to a new developer. I think if you treat the AI as a advanced search engine, then I think it's a super powerful tool. If you are using tools and having AI write you code and that you don't understand, that's going to have a I think that's as a former teacher and knowing what it takes to actually learn something, I think that can be fatally toxic. Um, yeah. I got to say I'm fairly glad that I'm not a teacher in the with AI the way it is right now. Okay, so here's what we need to do. Here's our current colony name. That's good. We get that name. That's great. We're going to also do private hex 3 current colony location. And maybe I leave you hanging there a little bit on what you're asking, but I do think you have to be disciplined to with your use of AI so that you're really learning what's going on. So if it's spitting out some code that you're making an effort to truly understand and think through that code, even if the AI is explaining it to you, I think that's fine. Because we all, right? I learned from books and other ways of searching information. So I definitely grabbed code that I didn't know how it worked, but I had to struggle through it. And I think what makes AI toxic is that you can get so much farther into your project before you realize that you're fucked. Whereas when you're copying code from Stack Overflow, um, and you copy that code in and it doesn't work or whatever, like you know that you're screwed right away because it doesn't work. That one function doesn't work. Whereas now with AI tools, you can write classes and projects and you can have a prototype that partially functions. And then that's super discouraging, right? So imagine my employer watching this. I don't think so. I don't, no, my employer don't. They're smart enough to realize that sitting in front of a screen and a keyboard does not equate to productivity. And truthfully, my supervisor, the last 2 years of annual reviews, has said things along the lines that I am extremely productive. And amongst, actually, the first year, he told me I was the most productive person he's ever worked with. So. Okay, so we need to tie these things all together. We need to get a bunch of messaging going in over here. So this is where things are going to get a little spaghettified, and we got to be really careful with it. So what we've got here is we've got a hex 3, which is a hexagonal coordinate system with the location. So that's going to get our location. That's how we're going to know that, and we're getting that from our map. So let's do that first. Let's build that in here. I find this stuff kind of like, it's like, I don't know. It's like this, like when you're working with loading and saving data, it's like this weird spiral that nothing works until it all works. I don't know. There's something weird I can't describe very well. All right. World map generator. We need to look at, oh, there's too many windows. Okay. All right, central tile. So this is where we need to broadcast this. Actually, that's not true. We need to broadcast the enemy or the player start, which is the central tile. Okay, that's okay. Well, let's do it over here because this is a more central place to do this. So we're going to do public event static event action. We are going to send the whole UI map tile player start. How do we want to make this? We start set. I don't like the grammar of that, but that's okay. Okay, so that's going to broadcast that, which is good. And we'll come back to our campaign manager. We're going to listen for that. So active map tiles set. Unsubscribe. I'll generate this method. Okay, so we now have a way of taking this in. I'm calling it active map tile because we're gonna call that when the map gets created and we set the player start area, as well as when we change locations. Let's see, what do you say? But you do have a code library where I store my old reusable code that I fully understand, but it's important to be able to write your code from the top of your head. It's not important to be able to write the code from the top of your head. That comes with time and experience. I think that is a fallacy. I think that's a fallacy. You don't have to know everything off the top of your head. You have to be able to think without like turning to an AI. But like there's different levels of granularity of how you think, right? You think about the flow of data and how that data moves from one class to another. Like I think conceptually before I think about lines of code, which is what essentially is what I'm doing right now. Like I am, right? Like I'm chatting, so it slows me down a little bit, but like I'm not typing full speed. I'm thinking through the flow of the data. And once I think about how the data needs to flow, then I can think about the more detailed level of how that's going to happen. How have I been a game developer for 13 years? Well, thankfully, my parents didn't put pressure on me for a career. They were very happy that I was a teacher. I was a teacher for almost 20 years. And really, almost everything that I've done to earn money, I have been self-taught and learned on the job or learned before the job. Um, you learn to think. Um, do I mean like doing the game architecture myself? I think you're referring to this idea of like thinking about how the data flows. Yeah, if that's what you mean, yeah, I guess my point is like any part of game development in my mind is generally a slow and very intentional thing where you have to plan it out and think it through. And for me, I think big picture, whether that's the architecture of the game, or in this case, I'm really just trying to take a string, which is a file name for a colony, and map it through the different classes that need to be aware of it. Um, which is why, like, if you look at what I have right now, I have a function that takes in this tile, and I have an if else. I have nothing in there. I just know that I need to do something different if a colony already exists or if it doesn't exist. I need to do two separate things. And again, so in terms of writing code off the top of your head, like, yes, I could write this, but the way I was thinking about it, I wasn't thinking about it in actual commands. I was thinking about it as a flow of data. And that's where things like autocomplete, IntelliSense, and Copilot, and to some extent larger AI stuff can be helpful. It can help you then fill in those pieces. uh, I'm old enough. I'm a big believer in, you know, do different stuff. There's lots of stuff that I haven't done. But I've been very lucky. I have been very lucky. I've got to live in different countries. I've got to live all over the United States. Got to go to school in different places. You know, discovered mountain biking, the sport that I love. My wife got me into skiing. Yeah, no, I've been very, very lucky. All right. So if this thing has a colony, let's get up here so we can see a little bit more. We're buried pretty deep, aren't we? Okay, so then we're going to do this colony location is going to equal tile level data location. Great. And this current colony equals tile level data colony file name, like that. All right, so otherwise, we're still going to say, actually, so this can happen, that can happen regardless of whether we have a colony or not. Now, this is so if we don't have a colony, we need to get a colony name. So what we're going to do is this colony, current colony, we're going to give it a new name. So, okay, to my point there was an exact example of where I didn't remember all the syntax of system.guid.new guid.toString. Like, I knew where to go find that piece of code. So rather than fumble and try to do it off the top of my head, so to speak, I went and found it. Okay. I'm gonna leave myself a little comment here. So the question here is, I'm not sure I want to push that to the level data yet. I think I only want to push that to the level data when we have actually saved the game. What is the best way for you to improve your coding skills? Practice. It's just like everything else. Practice, practice, practice. It's advice that very few people, myself included, listen to or are good at. You want to make a lot of small projects. A lot of small projects. And I would say each project that you take on should have maximum, and this is really hard when you're getting started, but if you've been doing this for 2 years, then you should have some foundation to stand on. Each new project you take on should have 1, maybe 2 new things for you to learn. I actually have said, I think I've got a smart on the channel, or short on the channel, saying that what I think you should do if you're really, really getting started, and it can be frustrating, especially when you are where you are, like you have enough knowledge to kind of frustrate yourself that you can't go do more, but you don't have enough knowledge to really do what you want. I think what people should do is plan out a project that takes 1 month. And then you take 1 month and you build that project. And at the end of the month, almost guaranteed, you haven't finished the project. So you stop. And then what you do is you then take a few days, you reflect back on that project, and ask yourself, why didn't it get done? Usually it's because the game was too big or the project was too big. So then you plan the next project and you make it smaller, quite a bit smaller, maybe like half as big as the previous project. And then you take that month and you do it. At the end of the second month, you look again and say, hey, did I get it done? Did I not get it done? If you still didn't get it done, then you need to, again, trim that game down. And then the next month, you make a smaller game yet again, and you take that month until you finish a game in a month. Once you finish a game in a month, you keep doing that for a couple of months. You keep pushing out little projects. And as you do that, you're practicing knowing what you can get done. You're getting better at it. That's the way to do it. If you get bogged down in a giant project first, your learning is way slower. It's way, way slower. Yeah, build simple games. Crank them out. And avoid the temptation to, with each new project, to build something bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I think everybody should build 4, 5, 6 little tiny games before they try to make anything. I think you need to make tiny games before you even try a small game. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Okay. Okay, so we've got that. This should work. We should now be able to push that to our data. What I want to do next is we're going to go to the save and load manager. So again, like what I'm trying to do is thinking about the flow of data here. So the save and load manager does as it says. So we're going to do another one here, file saved. And it's a little redundant, but I don't want to break too much stuff. So file saved, invoke file name. Oop. Okay, so that's going to broadcast what we just saved, which is great. Okay, so that broadcast that we actually have a save file now. So we're back over here at the World Conflict Manager. There's just a lot of pieces that need to know about stuff. So save load manager, file saved. What do we need to do here? So when that file gets saved, what we need to do is add file name to sector. So we're going to add the file name to sector. That's the primary thing we're going to do right now. And then we're going to do, okay, we're going to say if current sector equals null, we're going to boot ourselves out here, debug log error, no current sector. And return. Otherwise, we're going to say current sector level data set add colony name like that. Okay. So we save, we can now get it to our level data. So we have all of our pieces that are working now. When we save, that file name goes to the sector. When we change sectors, that goes to our campaign manager. Okay. A little convoluted, but I think it makes sense. I think everybody's kind of still in their own lane. Add colony file name. So what I want to look at here, okay, if this has colony and this and file name does not equal this colony file name, then we're going to throw an error. Yeah, yeah. My community is not active. It is really, really hard to maintain an active community. I think it is actually the. I mean, you asked this earlier. How do you build a community? Partially, my community is not active because I haven't published a video on this channel in a year. Which is okay, right? Like life takes different paths. You move around, you do different stuff. But I actually think that building and maintaining a community is the singular hardest thing with game development. Doubly so when you're a single developer and it's not your full-time job. Uh, any studio of any size is going to have somebody whose at least part-time job is marketing and community relations. It just takes a ton of effort to do it, and you can easily spend a significant portion of your development time interacting with your community. It's really hard. Like I am not able to stream to this channel every week, which would help build a community. I need, in order to build a community here on YouTube, like I should be producing shorts and videos. I should be producing, consumable content on Discord and other social media stuff, and it just takes a really long time. And so I have decided that I'm using this project. I'm enjoying building this project in and of itself. And my success is not going to be dictated by how many people buy my game or how active the community is. But it is really, really hard. I think everybody talks about the coding and the art and the more I hear about marketing a game development or marketing your game, I just think it's bullshit. Building a community is marketing. Yeah, it's building a community is incredibly difficult. Maintaining a community is incredibly difficult. If I started making videos again, if I started producing videos once a month on my channel, my Discord would come back to life. In 6 months, I'd have people chatting on the Discord again. But then what you also find is that there's a certain churn in your community. People only stay engaged with a new game for a few months, and then it goes on a wish list, and that person that was excited 6 months ago is now excited about a new game. And so it's really hard. All right, add colony file network. So All right, we're going to put some breakpoints in here. And we're going to do a little bit of testing. When I sold 4,000 copies, did I have a large community? Not particularly. So again, this just goes to the saturation of the market that's out there. So when I started building my first game, I actually started my YouTube channel as a way of hosting the trailer for my first game. That was it. I think actually when like the trailer got like 1,000 views is when I started thinking about, well, I wonder if I could start a YouTube channel, which is just laughable now. My way of building community was I streamed to Twitch. So again, this is 10, 11, 12 years ago. I was streaming to Twitch with no camera and no microphone. You know, I just had a little thing up, little text box saying, hey, sorry, no camera, no microphone. And I would get 10 or 15 people to join the stream. And so then that was built again with Steam Greenlight. Those two kind of worked together. So Steam was getting me some views from the Steam Greenlight, and then Twitch was getting me some. And so I would just stream. I was a teacher at the time, so I'd have, sometimes I'd have a 2-hour break in the day, and I was at a boarding school, so I would just go home and I'd work on my project, and I'd just fire up Steam, or fire up Twitch. But I would have 5, 10, or 15 people watching. You can't do that these days. Or just not in general. You can't just get on Twitch and stream without a camera and a microphone and have anybody watch. It just doesn't work that way anymore. So the answer is no, I didn't have a large community, but in some ways I had a larger community than I do now, even though my channel here has got 30,000 subscribers and whatever. Reaching people is harder than it used to be. Way more competition. All right, let's see what happens here. We got our breakpoints in here. Not sure why we're being grumpy about this one. We're just going to put breakpoints everywhere. All right, new game. Interesting. Yeah, I think in some ways, like if you are doing game development full time, building that community is easier, right? If this project was my full-time gig, so I had 40, 50 hours a week to really work on it, and I was, streaming maybe 3 times a week, taking 1 day a week to figure out how to make a short or two, working on a tutorial once a month or some sort of devlog once a month, you could build more of a community. But man, it's really fucking hard. All right. How much did 1,000 copies make you then compared to now? I mean, I made the mistake of when I published my first game on Steam, I was self-conscious of the game, and so I offered it at $2.99, $2.99 US, which was a mistake. I shouldn't have charged a lot for it, but I probably should have charged $4.99, which is the price that I finally settled into. So once I got out of early access, I raised the price from $2.99 to $4.99. I left a fair amount of money on the table in that process. Again, lucky enough that that money is that's money that I didn't need. I wasn't feeding myself that money, so it was okay. But I think profit wise, I sold those 4,000 copies. I think I made somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 12,000 US dollars. Whereas now this current game, I have it for sale for $10.99, which I still think is potentially on the low side. You know, oh, that's not what I want. Oh shit. Okay, that was good way we did this. I mean, pricing a game, there's so many things that go into it. You price it too low, people think it's shit. You price it too high, people get mad if there's a bug. Yeah. All right, we're saving that file name. Okay, so we need to. Oh, no current sector. Okay, so we got an error there too. So no current sector. All right, so we've got a few issues here. File saved. We're gonna make this. We're gonna do another one here just for fun. Colony saved. And colony saved. And we're gonna broadcast this here because this is what we actually need to broadcast. We probably don't need this colony or file save. That's probably not necessary. All right, so file name. Okay, so no current sector. This is what we hit. This is the bug we hit. Not bug, that's the line we hit. So what we're gonna do here is do this as well. We're gonna grab this. Actually. Okay. Hey, no worries if you gotta leave. Totally get that. I've got extra time today. My wife is away this evening, so I might just keep streaming. We'll see if somebody else will jump in and chat here. Do I plan on building a game studio in the future? Honestly, no. No, I don't. Would I love to? Yes, I would love to. Like, I would love to have a team of 3, 4, or 5. I mean, I'd love to be on a team of 3, 4, 5. Whether I'm in charge or not doesn't actually matter to me too much. But no, I don't expect to do that. I don't. I know what the chances are of being successful in this industry, especially solo and a small team. It's so hard. I would love to work with. Like, I'd love to work with an artist that the game can look really good. I'd love to work with somebody who's got a bit more UI and UX experience so that the design, the polish of the game can feel better. I'd love to work with somebody who has a head a little bit more for quote unquote game design. I don't want to work with an ideas guy, but I want to work with somebody who understands what it really means to make a fun game. And I'm gonna stand up here. I've been sitting down way too. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, all right, we set active tile. That's great. So here's one of the breakpoints we wanted to test. Oh, the sun is right in my eyes. Okay, colony does not have a name, or a tile does not have a colony. Great. So we create a current name for this colony. Awesome. That's what we want to do. So that should pop in over here then when we were doing the saving. Yeah, the sun is just right in the eyeballs. All right, let's let that load. I'm going to move the table up and pull the blind down. Hey, Diamond, thanks for joining again. Appreciate it. See you next time, hopefully. All right, let's try saving. Okay, we hit some breakpoints here. Current colony name. Okay, so we've got our colony name coming in, which is good. And then over here, that colony name's coming in. I mean, it should be. Let's go in here and see has colony false. All right, adding file name, setting that file name. Fabulous. Okay, so this is a big step in being able to reload a game, because now we have reference to the save file. Okay, so what we need to do here is go into easy save types. All right, so here we need to colony file. We need to add that. I've got a bunch of other fields here that I'm not saving because I just don't need to at the moment. Okay. Okay, so let's think about what do I need to, what's the next step here? So okay, so we're already saving. I'm just looking here, thinking about what are our next steps here. So current colony, we're already saving that. We're already saving colony names. Oh, the other piece we need to do. So we have a hash set of colony names. So okay, so again, we need to think about when do we add to that hash set. I think we only want to add to that hash set when we actually save the game. We're having some, YouTube's having some issues with the stream. Okay. Okay, so that saves that. So many little pieces just to deal with this little string of knowing when we can load things. Okay, so that should add it to the colony list. That's great. Because we don't want to add to that list here when we just go into a new place. Maybe that's the cleaner way of doing that. That when we I got to figure out how this is going to work with autosave as well. Yeah, there's a lot of little bits and pieces to figure out here. The other option is when you start a new colony that we just save it. It isn't a horrible idea. But I think I'm going to have to fix autosave. I'm going to have to figure out how the autosave works because right now the autosave. Yeah, autosave in this camp in the way I've done this campaign file, that's going to be a little bit of an issue. Of course, there's always an issue. Man, I'm still getting hit by the sun off the roof of a car. So the next thing I'm looking at here is when you press. This is the next piece. This is the big piece at some level. Is that when we build a new colony, when we press this build new colony button, we'll have to change this because not just going to be for building a new colony. We look if we can build it, or I should say, we have a button that lets us build a new colony, and we have a button that lets us load a previous colony. And so that's the functionality that I really want to get going now, is that I want to go back and reload another colony. Well, I don't know if YouTube is having problems or if I just scared everybody away, but I have approximately 0 viewers, and my brain's getting a little mushy, so I might just call it quits for now. I might be back later tonight. Got some extra time. It doesn't look like much, but this is good. This is good. I'm liking where this... I'm liking where this is going. So I might take a break for a little bit. Might be back. Don't know if there's anybody out there. It's always a little quiet on this channel, but it is particularly quiet today. Yeah, we'll take a little break.